Now, did you spend any time in England? Have you?
I'm not
You
going to
have,
answer that
right?
question.
Okay, perfect.
Mm-mm.
So, like everybody, um, we have watched all of the Netflix,
Oh, the whole thing, all
the
of
whole
Netflix,
thing. Yep.
or
And
just of The Crown.
well, all of it.
Oh, okay.
We're getting to the English connection. Just hang on, it'll circle
Okay.
back. And so on HBO Max,
Mhm.
because I have no idea why, they are offering up episodes and seasons of The Bachelor from different countries.
Oh, okay.
So you can look at a variety of production skills and qualities and such. But I was like, we have to watch the English one because I want to see, because at the end of the American Bachelor, regardless of the gender, there is a lot of emotion, let's say.
Yes.
There's crying. And if you had to pick one thing that the English people are known for,
Not crying.
not emotion.
Mhm.
So just episode 1. First off, their logo on the show is a blood with like hearts dripping off of it. It's like a giant heart with hearts dripping. It's a little weird. Is this an England thing or just a TV thing, referring to zip lining as a death slide?
Oh, I don't know, but I think that's a fabulous name.
Yeah,
for
it's a much better term.
Yeah.
Are you taunting me with this?
No.
Thank you. Okay. I've been handed an Oreo. Thank you.
I wish I had someone here to
I
hand
know.
me an Oreo.
This is Why, with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling.
And so on this date where they had to scale a rock and then take a death slide across to another rock where there's a lovely picnic set up for them. And the host of the show, the voiceover guy, one of the women on the dates was afraid of heights and very nervous about the death sliding. And they referred to this moment as her fear of having to go on this death slide as squeaky bum time. Have you heard of this before?
I feel like I have, but it's not something I would ever use, but it's fantastic.
I know. Well, apparently it is the last few minutes of a very tense sporting competition.
Well, it makes
because
sense.
it could go either way and
Right.
squeaky bum time.
Yeah.
So I was fascinated by this and
Are
Urban Dictionary and.
Are you implying that we need to start implementing more British colloquialisms into our podcasting?
I mean, I'm trying to get the phrase getting someone on the blower back into the
you're big
popular
on that
vernacular.
one.
Yeah,
Mhm.
It's a good one.
Mhm.
The other thing that made this whole show that much more English, that the Bachelor gave one of the women a rose. She says, "Thank you very much." What do you think his response is? It's this moment. It's an intimate moment. It's just nice.
But you're welcome.
Usually, no worries.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I like the English Bachelor better. Like I can't even make it through a minute of the American Bachelor or Bachelorette. I can't even
You've
deal.
got to check it out because the accents are amazing. It's interesting because like I feel like most of the English people who are on American TV have a very particular English accent.
True.
That they might even just be doing and is not actually their own accent.
Mm-hmm.
This show is rife with the regionalities of it all.
Yes, of course.
And then also the classes of it with varying degrees. And there's some people who open their mouths and you just say, "Oh, that's not a pretty accent. That's not a nice voice." And
does that impact your opinion of said contestant? Are they less attractive?
To me?
Yeah.
Well, look,
as the viewer,
as we get to squeaky bum time, I don't know.
Or does it make them more attractive because they're just kind of rough and tumble,
ready to break their warm Guinness and throw it at you? Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question. Yeah. Of course.
Or McCavity.
There you go. That's the one. That's the one you don't want to mess with.
No, you don't ever want to mess with McCavity.
it's interesting with cornhole because people always sort of crap on curling, saying, well, it's a sport you can do while you smoke a cigarette. Cornhole is also a sport that you can do while you're smoking a cigarette, correct?
Correct. And drinking a beer at the same time. Some people do, but
So how does this turn into a sport more than just a tailgate event?
yeah, I mean, I think obviously the roots of cornhole are as a tailgating game for sure, and it will continue to be a fun tailgating game. I probably like to compare it more to golf. Like I'm when I go out and play golf, I like to have a cooler full of beer when I play golf. I'm not playing professionally or taking it seriously. I'm playing golf for fun, and so if I was playing golf professionally, I probably would not drink so much when I play golf. But my guess is that there are golfers out there that probably have a flask in their bag and may take a swig from every now and then. Probably less so today than in the past, but certainly as professional golf was evolving, you used to see golfers smoke and drink. I believe when they were out there on the course, and so certainly in the early stages of our sport, we saw people drinking, and then as they take it more seriously as a professional sport, we see the level of drinking going down quite a bit at the top level.
Sure, but the steroid abuse goes way up. How did it go from this small little thing to, I saw you guys on ESPN a month ago.
Yeah, I was watching these guys play at tailgates. We were actually doing activations for sponsors with all kinds of different tailgating games. Cornhole was one of them. And I just saw these players playing cornhole at a more serious level than any other tailgating game for some reason. I was like, what is it about this tailgating game that's different from washers or ladder golf or something like that has these players just getting so amped up about it? And then I got to know some of the strategy that some of the top players were employing, because at the time I've got a beer in one hand. I'm just trying to get the bag on the board, basically. And I learned that these top players, they're executing different kind of shots. They're putting it at an exact spot on the board at a specific time in the round. So they're throwing the bag with intent to put it in a specific spot and spin it a specific way, and have it move up the board in a specific way. So the more I learned about the strategy of the game, I said, wow, I think this has a chance to be a legitimate sport. In order to do so, we need to put scores and stats around it, and we need to create a broadcast around it to legitimize it and showcase it as a sport, and be able to explain the strategy and show these cool shots that these guys can execute.
So how does one become professional?
So we have a pretty open process. You can play your way in to become an ACL pro. And when we first started the ACL, we didn't call players professional. We called them elite. So it's really been within the last 1.5 to 2 years that we started calling cornhole players at the top level a pro player, and set up that tour. So we actually started with 16 pros that we kind of created an ACL Pro Invitational for our first July 4th event that followed the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest, which was 3 years ago, actually. So we just had our 3rd year anniversary following Nathan's, which is pretty cool. So that's when we first introduced the word pro next to a cornhole player. And then we just kind of evolved the tour from there. And so, now our first full season where we allow people to play to get in, we have 32 spots available for people to play in a pro qualifier here next week, actually. There's a pro qualifier event for 256 players, and the top 32 get pro spots for next year. Because of the COVID situation, we're allowing all of our current pros the option to come back as pros. Normally, the bottom 25% would have to play in I kind of compare it to Q school for golf. we came up with the phrase a gauntlet. We were going to run that for the first time this year, where the bottom tier pros were going to have to fight to keep their card, so to speak.
Well, and nothing brings athletes together like a gauntlet.
Yeah. Yeah, people. I've gotten some pushback on that.
Please.
No, it's perfect.
And given where we are in the history of the world, given where we are in our time, it seems like cornhole is the perfect sport because you are naturally socially distanced.
Yes. Yeah.
So take that, MLB.
Yeah, we were actually, we were the first live U.S. sport back on ESPN. We just beat UFC by a few hours, going live back on ESPN. Of course, they got all the glory. I don't think we got mentioned once on SportsCenter, but
maybe if you guys had Cornhole Island.
Yes, if we could have done Cornhole Island.
Yeah.
If only I had several $100 million to build Cornhole Island, I'd be in great shape.
It'll be there.
But yeah, so I mean, we actually, and then we did 7 weeks in a row of live cornhole on ESPN during COVID. We didn't have one single outbreak from those events in that 7 weeks, and so like you said, if people wear masks, what we found is that works. And then we had bag grabbers and some other things which I don't necessarily think we needed, because I don't believe the virus can really be transferred on cornhole on fabric. So I think that we were fairly safe there, but we do have bag grabbers on our broadcast that grab bags out of the boards, and players. We made them exit for those 7 events, and then our event in Philadelphia, we did allow them to stay in the pitcher's box. So they were a little bit closer than 6 feet, but they were still apart and wearing masks.
So how much? So I know my niece and her fiance are, avid cornhole players. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't become your next pro. And they obviously have gone to, made their own boards, and there's certain bags that they like and all of these things. So how much of that individuality translates into a professional match? Do you bring your own stuff? Is everything sanctioned? And how does that all work?
Yeah, so we actually created the bring your own bags policy as probably one of the keys to our growth for the ACL and for the sport. So when I started the ACL, typically when a director would run an event, a cornhole tournament, let's say, they were providing the bags to players to use. And then as I was starting out, that was one of the biggest complaints I always heard from players. All these bags suck. They're awful. I want to be able to use my own. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let people bring their own bags and see what happens. And so the first year I did it, we started getting some super skinny bags. Like, we didn't have our regulations right for that policy and anything. So that policy has evolved quite a bit and continues to evolve. But yeah, so we set the size, the weight, and the thickness of the bag. So we have min and max tolerances for that. But basically, it's a 6x6 bag. Has to be an inch and a quarter thick, and weighs 16 ounces or 1 pound. So, and then we've tightened the tolerances up kind of year after year, and actually this year we're starting our first scientific testing of ACL pro level cornhole bags, where we're doing coefficient of friction tests and flexibility tests on cornhole bags. So we're getting more scientific with how we approve bags at the ACL pro level. And we also have launched different levels of equipment. So one of the other things that we saw is people would go into like a Dick's or a Walmart, and they would buy a set of cornhole boards, and they say, "Oh, that's what the guys were playing with on ESPN." Like, no, that's not what the people are playing with on ESPN. And so we created 3 different levels of equipment: ACL Rec, ACL Competitive, and ACL Pro. So now when you see that mark on cornhole equipment in Walmart, for example, and you say, "Oh, well, what's an ACL Rec?" Well, that's just meant to go out in the backyard and have fun, but don't play tournaments on it.
Yeah.
What's the difference in the boards?
So the boards will come in. Typically, they'll come in a tailgate size, or our traditional board is a 4x2 cornhole board. For our pro level board, we're pretty specific. It's got to be around 2 3/4 off the front and 12 inches off the back. It has to measure. So that slope of the board is pretty important for us at the pro level. We use a 3/4 inch Baltic birch cabinet grade high end top on our cornhole board. So you'll see boards out there in a lot of different shapes and sizes. So we're real specific about our pro board, but then as you move down in levels, we get more lenient on what we consider.
Sure.
At the end of the day, we want people to have fun, and we've seen all kinds of new ideas come. Like somebody sent us a wavy board. It has like 2 waves in it, and then a hole or something like that. You see all kinds of different innovations. People are doing circular boards now and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Where do you guys stand on decorations of the board? For example, if someone puts, I don't know, a Chicago Bears logo on the board, foul, or is that okay?
Well, it's okay if you're legally licensed. So, fortunately, we do make NFL licensed ACL Pro boards now. We just got that license deal done in the last year. So now we can do official ACL Pro boards with NFL marks. But yeah, we see a lot, there's a lot of board manufacturers out there that make high quality products in addition to our partner, which is allcornhole.com. But yeah, you can customize that board. It's a blank slate. And if you're getting a custom board from allcornhole.com, then you can have the ACL Pro mark on it. On there, you can use the ACL mark if you buy it from allcornhole.com. So outside of that, it's basically a blank canvas as long as you're legally licensed with the logos you're using.
And you couldn't just call Goodell up on the phone as commissioner to commissioner and say, "Hey, come on, let's make this thing happen."
Yeah, I wish. Yeah. Not quite.
One of these days. One day.
It's coming.
So we saw, it was during the whole COVID thing. I saw Dana White took a stab at boxing during one of his interviews. I saw, and he talked about. He said, when UFC started out on the ESPN totem pole, we were just above cornhole. And he said, so like boxing is below cornhole.
Shots fired, sir.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, he kind of caught us at being on the bottom of the ESPN totem pole, which is fine.
But you're on ESPN.
You're on ESPN.
That's right.
Like, just let it be known that you made it to the totem pole. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Most people
we made it to the totem pole, and obviously Dana White's paid enough attention to know that we do exist on ESPN.
Exactly. Did you have any idea that it would become as big as it has? Because I feel like it's just continuing to snowball and snowball and snowball. Yeah,
I thought it had a good chance to get big along the lines of bowling. Certainly, like we get compared a lot to curling, like you said. Like people feel like it should be a really cool Olympic sport for people to watch, and we agree. We want to make an Olympic sport. So I certainly felt like it had that opportunity. The speed at which we've grown has been pretty amazing. Meaning that when we started out and I did my first digital broadcast on ESPN3 and convincing them to give it a shot there, I figured it would be like probably a 2 to 3 year process before we would ever have a shot on linear, right? It was like we started our first year when we did our digital broadcast for our championships. I was really thinking, if we got on ESPN2 within 3 years, I'd be happy, right? And it was the very next year, a month out, where they called me and they said, "Hey, we were watching your championships last year and what you did broadcast wise. And we've got this open slot on ESPN2 that we'd like to see if you'd be interested in trying it out." I was like, never done a linear broadcast before, but said, absolutely. What is it going to take? How much more money is it going to cost me?
Right.
If I can go borrow that money real quick to get this done. So yeah, it's that that's kind of how it happened. And then, you know, when it was halfway through that first show on ESPN2, where the executive producer came out of the truck and was like, "Have you seen Twitter?" And I was like, "No, I'm just trying to make sure that these guys report to the broadcast." And, you know, because these players, they'll just start wondering, you know, this is the first time anyone's been doing. I was like, we just got to make sure these players show up and play. And he's like, you've blown up on Twitter. He's like, everyone in Bristol is laughing like crazy about how popular this thing is, just blown up, but no promotion whatsoever. And just people were commenting on Twitter right and left on it. And that led immediately into a 3-year deal with ESPN.
It's fantastic. Wow. Yeah.
So many sports hang or sort of rise and fall on the status of their celebrities and their star athletes. Mm-hmm. And for me, I'm a connoisseur of athletic nicknames. Do any of the cornhole players have any good nicknames? The Widowmaker, something like that?
Yeah. Actually, the Widowmaker is one that we first coined. Oh. We had a female that won the Carolinas cornhole tour. Was one of the first organized cornhole events that I put together, and we nicknamed her the Widowmaker. Crystal Man. Yep. So, yeah, you'll see. You'll see some nicknames from some guys. Damon Dennis, who had probably the most memorable shot last July, that went viral and got over 25 million views when he hit his and one shot. You know, his nickname is Double D, and you know, he ended up getting a feature in Muscle and Fitness magazine. So I would have never thought that you'd see a cornhole player in Muscle and Fitness, but yeah.
So how did the shot work? Like, what was that for someone who doesn't?
So there was his opponent's bag was up on the top of the board, just right behind the hole. And so he's having a conversation with his partner. This is the round limit format. They're behind in the match, and he's like, "You want me to knock that one off and make mine?" And his partner's like, "You got to do something. You know, we're behind. You know, you need to knock that bag off and make yours." And he's like, "All right." And then he did it, and the crowd just went absolutely nuts because that's, I mean, you rarely see that shot where you're able to knock your opponent's bag off the board and make yours in the hole. So it was pretty cool because it was a cool airmail, and that was the and one. And so nice. So now we see more players trying to execute it.
Do players have favorite bags, a la baseball with a favorite bat?
Yeah, do they name them? Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one of the things that we've seen that has just exploded is how bag manufacturers have been really innovative with the fabrics that they use, and there's like a race to try to get exclusivity on great new fabrics, and also the filling, how that bag feels in a player's hand is real important to them. So the speed of the fabric of the bag is important. That's one of the reasons why we're moving towards a scientific coefficient of friction rating, so we can get speed levels for each one of these bags. And so, yeah, they're really particular about their cornhole bags. It's the most passionate topic out there. So every time we change the bag policy, it's you know,
you hear about it.
I get booed like Roger Goodell when I change the bag policy. Like Roger Goodell does at the draft for sure. I got my fair share of. I got my fair share of booze.
Well, that's, you know, you've made it then.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Someone I just got sent a t-shirt, a snapshot of someone put me with a clown nose on a t-shirt, evidently.
There you go.
You definitely made it. When you become a clown, that's it.
Take that to the bank.
Right? So if I was to come to your house for a barbecue, not inviting myself over, but would we be having a cornhole tournament in the backyard, or is there a no cornhole policy at home?
Well, my wife and daughter do not play cornhole. So, as much as I've tried to get my daughter into it, she has not gravitated towards the sport. But we do, yeah. Usually, it's like if friends come over, they want to know where the boards are and they want to break them out. So we'll certainly do that.
I'm sure some people are probably coming over going, "Come on, I know you want me for the tour. I know I'm the next pro."
Yeah. Yeah, and it's our neighbors too. They're always asking, "Hey, can we borrow a set of cornhole boards?"
Yeah.
So we get a lot of that around the holidays from our friends and neighbors for sure. It's pretty cool. And then once they play on our equipment, then they're like, "Oh, we had no idea that these boards were this nice." Or I went out and bought a set at Dick's, and then I saw your cornhole boards and they're a lot different. I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
For more information on the American Cornhole League, check out iPlayCornhole.com. The World Championships start tomorrow, August 4th in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and they run from the 4th through the 9th. You can watch so much of the events on ESPN, so make sure to check your local listings and set your VCR, because you don't want to miss this.
Be sure to follow Why the Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and check out our YouTube channel for some additional great Why content. If you're so inclined, please leave us a review and let us know how we're doing.
Today's show was produced by myself and Heidi Hedquist. Our reluctant executive producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our graphic designer is Samantha Mustonen. Our intern is Randy Jeanette. The theme song was performed by the Electrosynth-No-Magnetic Polyphonic Orchestra. This one's for Philippe. Thanks for joining us. Flash, we're coming home.
Nigel, is that you? Are you here, Nigel?